You can see my contact information below there. So jordan.bogart@cph.org, phone number 314-268-1338. I've been with Concordia Technology Solutions software support for about 5.5 years now, and I really appreciate the opportunity to serve our churches. It's truly a blessing every day. So just want to note that all phones and microphones have been muted. So if you have any questions, you might notice there's a question window where you can type any questions you might have about the year end you might run across today. So please, as you have questions, just go ahead and ask them straight away. Myself or my manager here today, Rod Kyles, will be happy to answer any questions you guys might have. So Rod has been here for over 10 years with Concordia Technology Solutions. He's an extremely knowledgeable guy. If you have any questions for Rod, you can email him at his email right there, and that's also his phone number if you'd prefer to get in touch with him by phone. So today, what we're talking about is we are going over the year-end process for the membership module and the scheduler module inside of Shepherd Staff. So kind of what we'll be covering, kind of the structure of the class today. It's going to be about a 1-hour class, may run a little bit over, and if we do run over on time and you find that you need to leave, again, no worries. We are recording this session, so you'll be able to check it out later. So what we're talking about today, so here's the structure. We're going to kind of do an overview right now. We're going to get to our discussion. We'll then have time to review and do a quiz. Now, again, no pressure on this quiz. You're not being graded. No pressure there. Like I said, this is just kind of to help you guys retain some ideas that we put out here during the webinar today. And then at the end, we have time for just kind of a little bit of questions and answers. But again, don't hold your questions to the end. If you have questions, just go ahead and ask them. We're happy to answer those as we go. Okay, so what are we actually covering? We're going to be doing kind of a year-end overview. We're mostly going to be focusing on the membership module, and we're going to go ahead and talk about optimizing and rebuilding your database. This is just kind of a regular maintenance utility we ask you guys run inside of Shepherd Staff. Kind of helps keep things running smoothly. So we'll cover that first. And we'll talk about backing up your database, which is a very important part of doing your year-end. Then we're going to look in the membership module, and we're going to talk about a few things. So things about like updating your membership records, talking about statistical reports, and running the archival and cleanup utility. So just kind of a few things to keep your data running smooth. And we're also going to talk about the scheduler. Mostly we're just going to talk about the cleanup utility. There's not a lot to talk about in there. We're going to cover a few other topics in membership as well. It's mostly going to be talking about the membership module, but we will briefly touch on the scheduler as well. And then we'll hop into review, and then we will go ahead and jump into our quiz. So pretty short agenda today, but like I said, we're going to cover a little bit of little decent amount of content within a fairly short amount of time. So we are scheduled for an hour today. So we're going to go ahead and hop into that. And we'll have that question and answer session again at the end if you do hold your questions to the end. So let's go ahead and get started. And so I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera now. And we have that. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's switch over to Shepherd Staff here. So here in Shepherd Staff, the first thing, I'm logged in right now as System Administrator. Now, I'm going to go ahead and just say this off the top. If you're not logged in as a System Administrator, there may possibly be some things that you're not able to do that I'm going to do here today. So just be aware if you're doing that, especially when it comes to like the archival and cleanup. I think you do need System Administrator permissions to do that. So make sure if you're not seeing something available to you, it may be because you're not logged in as an administrator or somebody who has administrator privileges. So let's go ahead and start off with the rebuild and optimize this database. So to kind of briefly explain what it is, I like to use this analogy. Think of it like changing the oil in your car. It's something you need to do periodically to keep your car running smoothly. And if you don't, can cause problems with your car. So the same thing is true of the rebuild and optimize utility in Shepherd Staff. What it's doing basically is kind of as you work in your Shepherd Staff database over time, and this is true of really any database, kind of fragments of data kind of build up over time. And these fragments of data increase the size of your database, and it's really just junk data. It doesn't, so what this rebuild and optimize does is kind of sweeps through your database, finds this junk data and gets rid of it. Now, it's not actually going to go ahead and delete any information that you would need. For example, it's not going to show, it's not going to like erase anybody's address or anything like that. But again, just the nature of a database, it does build up kind of junk data over time, and this kind of helps sweep through and do that. Now, I'm not actually going to run this utility right now. The reason why is it can take a little bit of time depending on the size of your database, depending on the location of your database, and so I don't want to kind of have just kind of some dead air, but I'll show you where you would need to go to do that. So you would go to utilities and then run rebuild and then optimize this database. Give it some time to run. A few things to note about it: you do need to be the only person logged into your Shepherd Staff database when you go to run it. If somebody else is logged in, it will not run. So you need to make sure that you're the only one logged into the Shepherd Staff database on any computer in your church. And then when you run that, just be patient with it, let it run. Sometimes it can run very fast, sometimes it can take a little bit of time. But again, it's something we recommend doing. I would say probably at least every other week would be my suggestion for that. The system will actually inform you if it's been, I want to say about 90 days is when the system starts informing you directly when you try to close out a Shepherd Staff that you need to run the database rebuild and optimization. One other thing to note is that the database rebuild and optimization, when it comes to your contribution batches, and this kind of jumps into our contribution session from yesterday, but I'll go ahead and talk on this. If you have no unposted contribution batches at the time you run the database rebuild and optimize, it does reset the batch number back to 1 for the next time you would create a batch. So that's nothing to be alarmed about. The batch numbers, though, are just an arbitrary number. They don't actually affect anything in the system. So it's just something to note, and something we have had some concern calls about before, but I want to assure you guys that does not actually affect anything negatively in your system. So that is the database rebuild and optimization. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is backing up your database. So this is a really good thing to do on a normal basis, but it's especially important to do it at the year end, so you have kind of a fallback point to go back to if you would never need to revert any of the changes you make at year end. This is a really good time of year to do so. When you make a backup, it's our suggestion that you don't just make a backup to your local machine. And if you think about it, it makes sense. If you have your Shepherd Staff database stored on your hard drive and you make a backup to your hard drive, if your hard drive fails, well, not only did you lose your database, you also lost your backup. So it's kind of like, we really wouldn't do you any good. So therefore, our recommendation is that when you make your backups, I would recommend making your backups to at least 2 different places. I would say you might consider making a backup to, say, a flash drive, and maybe then also making a backup to an external server or something like that. Two different places. Redundancy is always a good thing with backups, because when you have redundancy, if one place fails, you have somewhere else where that same backup's at. So it's just a way to kind of increase the level of safety you guys have in case anything would happen. Again, we hope nothing does, but again, backups are kind of our ticket to make sure that if it does, you guys are taken care of. Now, to make a backup in Shepherd Staff, we would go to Utilities and then Database Backup and Restore. Now, here at this window, you're going to see the Database Backup and Restore. Very simple to use. First thing you're going to do is you're going to pick the location that you want to make your backup to. And it gives you 3 different options here. A location I will choose after clicking Start Backup, the last location used, or a previous location. So a location I will choose after clicking Start Backup, if we use this, after we click the Start Backup button, the system will let us create a backup anywhere we want. that our computer can access. So that could be a flash drive, that could be an external server, that could be on your computer itself. And that's not bad necessarily if you're wanting to just make a quick backup to maybe give yourself a safety net if you make a change in the software and then after you make it you realize, oh well, I need to go back just very quickly. That would kind of be a nice little safety net there. The last location used is simply going to look at the last location that you made a backup to on this specific computer. So if you make a backup on another computer and you try to use the last location I used, it's not, the system won't know, oh, the last location I used was on this other computer was a flash drive. It's only going to look at the last location used on the computer that you're on. So you want to be careful about using that because that may, if you're not expecting that may make a backup to a location you're not expecting. Then a previous location, if you use that, that's going to give you this drop-down list here, and you can see all the different places that you've made a backup to in the past, and you can select those as a shortcut. So that may be a useful one if, again, you kind of want to look and see what locations you guys have used in the past. Two other options down here at the bottom. Flag finance is being checked out. My associate will probably go into, I'm going to guess is going to go into more detail about that tomorrow when we talk about finance. Basically, just kind of think of flagging finance as being checked out. It's kind of your way of saying, hey, we're going to be working on finance outside of the church. Don't make any changes in the finance module while this is still flagged. Other option you have is to upload this backup to CTS. Now this is an option we offer for any customer who has registered their database with us. And if you have any questions about registering your database, please give us a call. Or so any customer who has registered their database and has a current support contract with us for Shepherd staff. If you have this, you have the ability when you make your backups to check this box. And then when you make your backup, not only will it create a backup on whatever local source you guys are backing up to, but it will also send a backup of your database to a secure server on our end that's stored just for your church. So this is a secured encrypted server that we have that you can send your backups to. If you would ever run into a situation where you lost your database, you can't find your backups, you absolutely don't have any other way to get back to where you were. If you've made backups to us, you can call us and we can kind of start the process of retrieving that backup off of our secured server for you so you guys can get back up and running again. So it's kind of the last line of defense basically. We do ask that if you have backups of your own, try to use those first. But if you find that any of the backups that you have aren't working, we can help you guys get that backup back that you sent to us. So again, very useful to use. So when I do the backup here, you go ahead and start backup. And after I click Start Backup then here, and this is the option I chose. The option I chose was a location. I'll choose after clicking Start Backup. I get a File Explorer window here, and in this File Explorer window, I can pick whatever location my computer can access from this section. So in this example here, I don't actually have a flash drive attached to this computer. So let's say I was just going to make it to the desktop. This is just kind of a quick example. So I'm going to click Desktop here, and then I'm going to see the file name. Now, with this file name, it's very important that you don't edit this file name. If you edit this file name, Shepherd staff is going to have trouble reading that backup. It does actually depend on the names. I know these names kind of seem a little bit inconvenient, but if I can point something out here, if you look starting here, this is actually showing the year 2020, the date, the month, date, and year. So 01. January 14, current day, so the month and date, and then actually the exact time we started making this backup. So this is actually, so then you actually can see here, all right, 10, 14, 43. So this actually goes down to the second. So 10 o'clock, 14 minutes, 43 seconds. So it tells you actually the exact date and time if you look at those last numbers. So that's something to keep in mind here as well. It can tell you the time. And of course, if you're looking inside of Windows and you show the date modified, that would also show you the date too. But you can see now that I made the backup, it's also uploading that backup to CTS. And so, yeah, to answer your question, Delia, when you actually, if you're uploading your backup to CTS, you have to make a backup to your local machine too. So we do require that to happen. So there's not an option to just make a backup and just send it to CTS. Now, this is, I think, probably just an internal firewall issue on our end. You see unable to connect to the remote server. So that's not something you would normally see. It says it failed, but that's not something you would normally see on on your end. If you do, though, please give us a call. We'll work with you guys to get that resolved, but that's not something you guys should normally see. Okay, so that's talking about the database backup and restore and the data and the rebuild and optimize. Let's go ahead and hop into the membership module and talk about membership. So one of the first things I would recommend doing inside of the membership module when we're talking about doing the year end is to make sure that all your information is up to date. So if you receive any, for example, if someone has left your church during the course of the year, it's important that we go in and we mark them as removed if you haven't already. So let's work with the Bobine family here. So let's say Ellen and James have went ahead, they have transferred away from our church. So it's important that we go in and we mark them as removed. Now, an important distinction I want to make when it comes to people leaving a church is you don't want to go in and mark them as a non-member. There's an important distinction between non-members and removed members. A non-member is somebody who has never been a member of your church. Somebody, a visitor, so that would be, people call it under the qualification of like visitors, prospects, people who have not officially made the step to becoming a member in your church. A removed member is somebody who at some point was a member of your church, but for whatever reason, whether it be they transferred away, whether they passed away, whether they just left and they didn't do a proper transfer. That is somebody who is a removed member, and there's an important distinction of that because a lot of denominational reports do make a distinction between people who are removed and people who are not members. So it's important that for people who are removed, we mark them as such. So let's say Ellen here, she was removed. Let's say she was removed by transfer, and we'll say that happened, let's say 11/15/2019. So I can type that in and click save here. Let me do that, and that's been saved. And then you can see then it even puts a line through her name indicating then that she is a removed member. Now I can go back here then to James, and this is really handy. I can actually just go to the previous or next person, and I can do the same thing for James. So let's go ahead and say transfer, and they transferred, and he also transferred out again 11/15/2019. Okay, so they are both now removed members. Again, very important distinction between removed members and non-members. Now, you may want to check some other information too, of course. Again, a lot of this is all in service of your reporting. So you want to make sure if somebody confirmed, you've checked off they're confirmed, and if you have the date, put the date in. So births, deaths, baptisms, confirmations, marriages, divorces, membership changes, all of that. You want to make sure for your year-end reporting, you've taken the time to go through people's records and make sure their information is as up to date as possible. Obviously, you may not have everything, but if it's happened in your church, over the course of the past year, you want to make every effort to make sure you have that recorded in Shepherd Staff so you can get the most accurate reports possible. Okay, now, what's a good way to track down some information? Well, let's see. How do I change the participation to removed for a person who has passed away? So the participation and removed by field, really of the two fields, the removed by field is kind of the more important of the two. And what I mean by that, let's say with Deidre Barber here, she may, actually she's not a member, so that's not a great example. Let's go with Allie Baxter here. Okay, so with Allie Baxter, you can see her participation is active. That's actually, I'll tell you what, let's use, let me go back here. I'll use Sally Baxter. So if Sally passed away and we changed her to remove by death, you could go in here and change her to remove by death, put in her death date, and then you could actually come into participation and change her to deceased. You may, and then you may also want to go ahead and when you save this here, it marks her as being removed by death. You may also want to update that in the death date field as well. And you can put any extra notes you might want here about the person passing here. So we'll go ahead and fill that in 1/14/2020. There it is. And so that's how you would do it. You just come into the church section of a person record and you can change that there. So that's how you would make that change. Again, I would say really the more important of the two is the remove by, because when that actually makes somebody a removed member. Participation just, again, is kind of an extra descriptor. So it can be used, but again, I would say the more important of the two is the removed by. Because that's what your reports are going to look at. So going back here, let's talk about the inactivity view. So this is a really good way to track when people, kind of speaking of participation, this is a really good way to track when people have become kind of less involved at your church, and you may need to follow up with them. And again, you may also decide, okay, we need to go ahead and maybe take that step towards removing them from membership if it's been an especially long time possibly. So the inactivity report, specifically what it does is it lets you look at people from the group you choose. So you can pick that from who here. It's set to default to current members. Current members are people who are listed as members currently, who are not removed, who have participation of active. But you can pick any of these groups here: confirmed members, all members, enrollees, and you can even say for a subgroup if you want. If you say for a subgroup, then you can actually pick a particular subgroup. But you can say who these people are, and then you can say what kind of things you're looking for. So you can say people who don't have attendance or contributions, people who don't have attendance, people who don't have contributions, or people who don't have present participation in an activity. And this kind of talks about the activity, skills, and trainings that can be found under the list section. So this is kind of a good way to identify people for activities who you may want to get involved. But aside from that, we talk about attendance or contributions. And then we have some set date ranges here. These are kind of the most common date ranges we've found that people are looking to get this information on. So you can see anywhere from a week all the way out to 3 years. So you have quite a range of what you can, participation that you can look at. So what might be a good idea then is, let's say, okay, maybe I look at my people who are current members and people who haven't attended or contributed in over a year. Maybe it would make sense to kind of, maybe make one last contact with them. And if, they kind of say, hey, we've moved on, or you don't get any response, it may be a good time to go ahead and mark them as being removed. So now there is some options here. You can say for specific age groups. So you can find just for everyone. If you want to see everyone, you can say just adults, older adults, middle age, young adult, college age, any of those. Or you can even say people who have no birth date entered. So really any group you want, you can find there. We'll stick with adult for right now. And there are also some options for exclusion as well. So people who are away or out of town, that's referring to an alternate address. If they have an alternate address in the system in their household, maybe you have some people who are like snowbirds, for example, and they're gone for the winter, and you're looking at maybe a 3-month range. It makes sense then that they may have been gone for haven't attended or contributed in the past 3 months because they've not been in town. So it probably makes sense to exclude those. Have a planned touch point. So this refers to touch points here. That touch points are planned visit or So if you're only seeing out to 180 days, that does indicate you don't have the very latest feature pack for Shepherd Staff. Very easy to get. If you just go out to the main menu of Shepherd Staff, go to Utilities and check for software updates, you'll see that there's a feature pack available to download. So that's something, the up to 3-year range, I think is something we added just in the latest feature pack. So you may want to check that. You may want to check that out if you're not seeing that. Okay, let me go back here. There it is. Okay, so back to the inactivity report. Now, have a planned touch point or a completed touch point in the past, and then you can pick, again, a date range there. So touch points are basically a official contact from the church, whether that be visiting the person, whether that be calling the person, emailing, getting in touch with them in some fashion. So oftentimes for this inactivity report, kind of the follow-up to that is making contact with somebody, that person. So calling them, emailing them, getting, actually visiting them. And you can actually plan those out in advance. So over here in the touch points planned. So if you want to do that, you just come into touch points planned, click add, and you can say it's for a household or an individual. And you can put in all the details then there. And then once you plan the touch point, you can actually go in and change a planned touch point to a completed touch point by clicking this complete option here. And that's saying basically you had it planned, you met with them, after meeting with them, hey, here's the deal. And you can say have a completed touch point in the past so many days. So this would exclude them from the list if you guys have already met with them and said, hey, kind of talk with them, and you don't need to include them on the list anymore. Also, another thing to note about this, removed and inactive people are always excluded from this list. So if they're removed and inactive, you don't have to worry about them showing up here, because this is really only for people who are, considered active in your church already. If they show up as inactive here, that may be kind of the step to that may be kind of the first step in considering making them inactive or removed. Okay, so that's the inactivity report, or view rather. Let's talk about a few other reports you might consider running at year end. So another report you might consider running here is the church statistics report. So this kind of helps you pull up some useful figures about your church. Now, the first thing you have to do is you have to define who a member is at your church. Now, at the very basic level, somebody is a member at your church if they are marked as a member in Shepherd Staff. There obviously are some more requirements to that. So for this statistical report, you can add additional conditions to that to be considered a member. So, for example, most churches out there are going to require that a member is somebody who is baptized and more than likely confirmed as well. You may also require that somebody has taken their first communion also. You may also consider that you're only wanting maybe to see your active members. So we're considering active participation. Now, I would say you probably want to use just one or the other on these here. I would say you would probably, you could say either I want to see just the active participation, or I want to see those who are not inactive. And that the not inactive kind of allows for a greater range of different participations. I know some churches out there kind of like to use participations for things like prospects and things like that. So this kind of allows for a little bit more flexibility in that area. And then these last options I think are probably some of the most important. This is saying received as of the year end and not removed as of the year end. Basically, this is saying in order to be included in this report, because this is a report that runs based on the membership year, they have to be received as a member by the year end, and they can't be removed by the end of the year that you're looking at to be considered a member. So two options I think are pretty important there. Now, you have the option to include extra information. So if you actually want to see the individual people in this, I would say check the box to see person names. You can also have the option to include remove people and deceased people in your information as well. The child age cutoff, what that's referring to is basically the age up until a person is considered a child. So you can see the default's to 14 here, but you can change this as you need. So some churches are looking, basically saying all the way through 17, somebody's considered a child, and at 18, they're considered an adult. So it's kind of up to your church on how you want to show that. Then you can also pick the membership year. This is the year you're looking at for your reports, and then you can say, and at what time does your membership year begin? And that's kind of what this is going to calculate on as well. Now the top up here where it says type, this is the type of statistical report you're going to run. So you can see member definition. This is just going to give you a quick printout showing you what kind of information you selected for your member definition. So when I print this, it's going to show you a checklist here, just showing you all the different options you might have chose, and then it gives you some basic statistics based on those choices. So here's how many total non-deleted people I have, how many households represented by these people, total members based on the above definition, total households with at least one member. You can see it gives you a nice little, just a quick breakdown here based on the criteria that you set. Now, you have a lot of different other reports too. So you can get a report based on age. If I click print here, this actually shows you at each age how many people you have in your church at that age. You're going to see a lot of age 0 if you have some people who don't have their birthday filled in. You're going to see a lot there. You can go through this. You can see at each individual age how many people you have. If you go all the way to the end of this report, it actually gives you figures on specific age ranges here too. And it breaks it down by male and female as well. So you can see you have a lot of different options, a lot of different information coming at you here for this. You can get a member, non-member breakdown here, information about how many people are baptized, how many are confirmed, how many people had their first communion. Again, you can, like I said, see, there's really a lot of options you can see. There's a lot of things you can see here. If you run the membership statistics report, this actually kind of gives you a generic statistical report where it's showing you your total membership breakdown by male, female, adults, children, age unknown, those who are baptized, those who are confirmed, those who have taken their first communion, and then increases and decreases in various categories of your membership. So again, really useful stuff here. So that's the generic church statistic reports. Now we also offer denomination-specific reports. These are tailored by the various denominations that we have these reports in here on. We have been in contact with various denominational offices to create these reports. So we have just a few different specific ones in the software. We have, for the Lutheran churches, we have the LCMS, WELS, and ELCA reports. Presbyterian, we have PC and then PC USA. We have the Southern Baptist, and we also have the United Methodist tables 1, 2, and 3. If you don't see your denomination in here, you can just kind of check out the different options we offer, see what one might work, kind of most closely for your church. Or if if you'd also like as well, if you can get the specific annual report information you need from your church's denominational office and get us in touch with them, we can get that over to our development team and take a look at that as well. Denomination-specific reports are more for finance and contributions, right? Not necessarily. This does show membership gains and losses. So it is kind of an all-encompassing, typically these are kind of all-encompassing reports for your church. So for example here, I'm going to show the LCMS report. A lot of these have similar controls for how they work. So I'm not going to go into every single option here, but I'm gonna go through here and just kind of show how one of these works, and this will kind of give you an idea of how the other ones work. So for the LCMS report, for example, you're going to see kind of some basic information, church information, year. You can set the year your church was organized, your reporting year, your age cutoff for children. Now these questions may be a little bit, these screens and questions may be a little bit different for other reports, but the basic idea is reporting year is the year you're running the report for, and again, age cutoff for children is just like the church statistics report. It's basically saying up until this age, a person is considered a child. So here in membership, for example, this also looks at the total, basically, baptized membership as of your previous date, the previous year's date, how many baptisms you had during the course of your year, how many your total confirmed membership, and then you can see your gains and losses. Now the cool part about this is if you click one of these eyes here where it shows a number, it'll actually tell you who these people are. So you can see we have 3 people we had who were received as baptized, who were received as by being confirmed at the church this year. So you can see total losses and total gains. You do get to see membership demographics in this particular report. So you can see how those are going through. You can see information about your attendance and activities. So a control you'll see in a lot of these denomination reports, you'll see this button here, checklist with some lines here. This is asking you to choose some options. So for example, this is trying to calculate your average weekend worship attendance. So you need to say what events in your attendance module are part of that. So if we say contemporary worship and traditional worship are part of that, then that's going to go ahead and count those events for the purposes of figuring out your average weekend worship attendance. So if I click Save and Calculate now, you can see then it fills that figure in. And you can go through here and you can look at your Sunday school enrollment. You can say what grades are part of your Sunday school. You can say, you can put in weekday classes. So if you have, for example, like training classes in your list, you can include those. So you have a lot of different options for things you can include on your report. And then in the financial section, again, this is where you go in and say what accounts are part of your receipts, what accounts are part of your disbursements. When you're done with filling in all your information, you click Save and Calculate, and then you can click Print to generate your report. So again, this is just the LCMS report. There are other reports or other denominations out there. They work maybe a little bit, they have some different options in them that work a little bit different. So it's one of those things that you do have to kind of take a look at and see what your church needs. And of course, if you're running the report and you have any questions on anything, give us a call. We're happy to work through this stuff here with you to make sure that we're getting what we're looking for. Okay, so let me close that out. All right, a few other things to do here at year end. So another thing you might have at year end is you might need to clean up some, if you have some like duplicate person records or anything like that, you may need to clean that up. Now I went ahead and before the training started here today, I actually went ahead and added some records in here, and I have 2 side by side, Mark Johnson and Mark Johnston. This is obviously a mistake that could very easily happen at a church. Mark, so maybe Mark Johnston visited us one week at our church, and then we looked at it, and then we realized the next week, oh, we had a Mark Johnson visit, and so we actually misread his name the first time. So Mark Johnson's actually the real person, and Mark Johnston is actually the one we need to get rid of. Now the problem is though, if I go to delete this person, it tells me, oh, well, they have attendance, so I can't do that. Well, what if I try to delete this one? Again, they have attendance as well. So what are our options for taking care of this? Well, we can go into the tools and settings menu, and again, before I would do this, I would recommend making a backup of your data just in case you need to get anything back after the fact. So if I go to tools and settings and I go to combine duplicate person information, I can pick this, click start, and it's going to let you know this tool combines one person's information with another person's information. It can't be undone unless you have a backup. So you want to make sure you have that backup. We'll click yes, we want to continue. And so what we're going to do here is in this first field, we're going to select the person that we want to go ahead and get rid of, the one we want to merge in. So in this case, we want to get rid of Mark Johnston. So I'm going to type in Johnston, and I found Mark Johnston here. So I'm going to pick him, and we want to keep Mark Johnson. So I'm going to find Mark Johnson on this side. Okay, so I have my 2 people selected, Mark Johnston, Mark Johnson. If I click continue, what it does next is it compares all of their information side by side. The only difference between these 2 people right now is that they have a different last name. So you can pick what information that you would like to retain between the two people. Now in this case, Johnson is the right last name, so I'm not going to change anything here, but you can see I could go ahead and select either one of these. So I'll click apply, click yes, and that takes me out. And now if I search Johnson, I only get Mark Johnson, and I can go back here and search Johnston, and there is no Johnston anymore. We have merged those two records together. Okay. Now, the other thing you might need to do is you may, like I said, you may possibly decide at the end of a year, I just need to kind of clean up my database. I need to delete people. Now, as you saw here earlier, if I try to delete somebody who has records, I can't do that. So you do have to kind of go through, and we personally don't recommend just deleting people. The reason why, again, it doesn't hurt to have those people in your database. It doesn't cause any problems. But if you just delete the data, you simply don't have it anymore. So you do, if you do decide to do this, again, not really a recommendation, you do need to go through, you need to get rid of their contribution information, you need to get rid of their attendance information. If they have either of those, then unfortunately you will not be able to delete them until you get rid of that information. So something important to think about there. But if you make the decision that you want to delete somebody, after that's been all done, you can go to Tools and Settings and go to Archive and Cleanup. Because what happens when you click delete is actually the person is archived. They're kind of put in this archive section here. So I actually have this Jim Billings here, which was deleted, a person who was deleted earlier. And you're given two options. So you can access this again from Tools and Settings and Archival and Cleanup. So you have two options here. You have the option to purge this person out of the system permanently. This deletes them completely out of Shepherd staff. They are no longer in the database in any capacity. The other option you have is to restore this person. This will actually go ahead and bring them back into your person records, so you have their information. You can go ahead and make any changes and take a look at their full person record from there. You do have the option to print this list out if you'd like. You do have the option to export it out to Excel. So this is the archive view. When people get deleted, they do come here first. So it's something to be aware of. Okay. So that's most of what I have here on the membership module. Let's go ahead and make a quick jump over to our scheduler module. And really, there's not a lot to talk about here in Scheduler. There is a kind of a basic cleanup utility, and I think that's what we'll go ahead and cover here today. So if you work in Scheduler, you may decide at some points you want to get rid of some old events that you have in the system. If so, no problem. Go to Utilities, go to Cleanup. It does recommend you make a backup of your database before you do that. And again, you can then just say purge events that are on or older than, and you can say a certain date that you want to get rid of these on. So basically, if you've been working in the scheduler module for a long time and you don't really need information on events that are over 10 years or more old at this point, you can come in here, check this box and say, I want to delete everything that's older than this date, and it will just wipe it out of your system for you. Again, it's not something you have to do. It's not something you're required to do, but it can certainly help you guys get things cleaned up here in the scheduler module if you would so choose. So that is the cleanup in the scheduler module. Other than that, there's not a lot to talk about there. So I just wanted to kind of briefly mention that for those who use the scheduler module out there, if you guys are looking to kind of do some maintenance there. Okay, so with all that said, that's what I have here for kind of instruction on different things for the modules. Let's go ahead and open up the floor here to a review. So what are we looking at here in our review? Kind of our recommendation for the order you should perform your year-end activities is to do your year-end in contributions, then attendance, then membership. Scheduler and finance are independent and can be done at any time. Now, the reason we kind of suggest doing your contributions, attendance, and membership is because membership basically contains the denominational reports, which do kind of look into those other modules. So that's why we suggest, hey, let's do it in this order, for example. So some basic steps to remember: you want to make sure you update and enter all data. Important in the membership module for sure, definitely important inside the contribution module and the finance module, because there are certain cutoff points in those modules, which again, my associates will go over and have gone over or will go over in those different trainings here. So, these updates include updating envelope numbers and posting batches for the contribution module, running any needed reports for all the modules, and again, for the contribution and attendance modules, contribution statements and attendance comparison. So what does our workflow look like? Well, I would say this: make a new backup before completing each module's year-end task. It gives you a fallback point to go back to if something is incorrect after running the year-end. So I would say, just make a backup at each point. It doesn't really hurt you to do that. And again, it can save you a world of time if something does not go the way you expect. Having the backup is simply just a quick reset button to say, I need to go back, this didn't work right. Now, complete the year-end task for the specific module and then check your data afterwards. So again, take the time just to make sure everything is looking the way you want. The year-end, like I said, it's a really good time to make sure that your data looks the way you're expecting it to look, or if it's not looking the way you expect it to look, review why the data looks that way and see if you can make changes to get it back in line with what you're expecting. I would also say make another backup once the year-end task is complete. Again, this gives you a fallback point if you get a little ways into the year and you realize, oh wait, something's still wrong. It also kind of gives you a snapshot of your data at the time it was created. So again, always a smart thing to do. Never hurts to make another backup, I would say. All right, let's go ahead and step into our quiz questions here. So I have a couple quiz questions for you today. Just a few important, few topics we've talked about during the course of the training. Again, I want to reiterate again, no pressure here. You're not being graded. Just want to make sure kind of some of these points we're talking about today have stuck with you. Okay, so first question up. So you'll see a little window pop up here in just a moment where you can answer the question. True or false? When updating membership records, you should update received by, baptism, and confirmation information. True or false? When updating membership records, you should update received by, baptism, and confirmation information. So you're going to see a poll go out here next. I've just sent that out now. True or false? Is this information things you should be checking on at year end to update? See, we have a pretty good percentage of people who have voted now. I'm going to give everyone just a few more seconds to get their answers in. 5 more seconds here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the polling now. All right, so true or false, when updating membership records, you should update received by, baptism, and confirmation information. We had a pretty heavy bias towards true here, so let's see if people are right. True. Updating membership data will help make your end of year reporting more accurate. Make sure to update all the following: birthdays, deaths, baptisms, confirmations, marriages, divorces, received by, removed by. All this information helps play into your year-end reporting. So it's really important that before you start getting into your reports, you take the time to look at all this information and make sure it's up to date in your system. Okay, next up, another true or false question. When a member transfers to a new church, I should mark them as a non-member inside of Shepherd staff. True or false? When a member transfers to a new church, I should mark them as a non-member inside of Shepherd staff. So We're going to go ahead and let people vote on that one here. When a member transfers to a new church, I should mark them as a non-member inside of Shepherd staff. I'm going to give everyone just a few more seconds to get that answered. All right. Looks like we have most everyone have put in their answer here now. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. True or false? When a member transfers to a new church, I should mark them as a non-member inside of Shepherd staff. Here we had a pretty heavy bias towards false. So let's see if we were right here. Answer is false. The person should be labeled as a removed member. Now remember, there's an important difference between removed members and non-members. So you'll want to edit their person record and give them a removed by reason or removed by date. Make sure to leave their member status alone until you've generated all your year-end reports. Failing to do so will cause your reports to be inaccurate. And I would say even beyond that, I would say again, I would still leave the distinct. I wouldn't even worry about changing them to a non-member really at any point. The important designation to remember about non-members and members, non-members and removed members, is that a non-member is somebody who has never been a member of your church. A removed member is somebody who at one time was a member of your church, and your year-end reporting makes that distinction. The people who are, people who have been removed, it's going to, a lot of your year-end reports are going to look at who was removed during the year. Now, if you mark them as a non-member, the system doesn't know that they were removed during the year. So that's why it's important to make that distinction between non-members and removed members. All right, next up, another true or false question. The archival and cleanup utility can be used to delete people from the membership module. The archival and cleanup utility can be used to delete people from the membership module. So I'm going to launch that here now. So this is something we covered towards the end of the membership section. So the archival and cleanup utility can be used to delete people from the membership module. Give everybody a little bit of time to get that answered. So give everybody another 5-10 seconds here to get that answered. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll out. So on this one, it looks like the majority of people voted true. The archival and cleanup utility could be used to delete people from the membership module. So click here, and that is true. You can use the archival and cleanup utility to remove people from the database. This also does delete any attendance and contribution data associated with the removed person. So actually, I do want to amend that just a little bit. You do, for people who have been, if you're purging them from the archival and cleanup utility, it actually is something you actually have to get rid of that attendance and contribution data before they wind up there. So I do want to amend that just a little bit. Please use caution when running this utility and make a backup prior to starting this task, because again, once they're out of the system, that's it. They're out. There's no method other than restoring a backup that will retrieve these people. So you want to make sure that you're absolutely sure before you do this. And again, it's something you want to kind of very, very strongly consider. Maybe we don't need to do if that's the case. But anyway, moving along. Okay, last question I have here in the quiz today. The inactivity report finds those who are not participating, attending, and or contributing. The inactivity view finds those who are not participating, attending, and or contributing. So go ahead and send in your votes on this one here. Got a lot of people voting here. Gonna give everyone just a few more seconds to get their votes in. Get their answers in, rather. Okay, just a few more seconds. All right, so that I'm going to go ahead and close the poll on this one. True or false? Again, here the majority voted true. The inactivity finds those who are not participating, attending, and or contributing. And this is true. You may want to use this view to find those people who are no longer active in your church. This report will help you find those who are no longer attending or contributing. You can also find those who are not participating in activities. And again, this is a great tool. This is just gonna, at a quick glance, find the people who have kind of just stopped attending, stopped contributing. And again, maybe time to kind of either reach out to them and say, and kind of find out what's going on, or it may be time to find out, or maybe time to consider removing them from membership if it's been long enough. So that would be a call your church has to make at that time. Okay, well, that ends up the quiz. Good job, guys. You guys did a good job on getting those questions answered. And I'm going to ask you guys now, do you have any questions on the year-end process for membership or scheduler? I saw here Delia had a question here. The person who had this position left no notes on what reports to do for the end of year. What do you suggest the main reports that should be generated before closing out? So one thing I want to say, there's really not a closing out in membership. And we're talking about the membership and scheduler module. There's not a proper closeout. The one reports I would recommend running, I would say, again, your church statistic, you can kind of look through the church statistic reports, find out what figures are kind of important to look for your church. And I would also recommend running the denomination specific reports, as those reports that your church denomination has recommended are good figures to have. And some church denominations even ask that you kind of send those figures in. So you may want to check with your denominational office if that's something you guys need to do. What if they, as far as the inactivity report, what if they don't attend but still contribute financially? So back in that report, let's go ahead and hop back over to Shepherd staff. You'll notice here there's different options in the inactivity report. So I can come over here to ministry, go to inactivity, and you can say people with no attendance or contributions, no attendance, no contributions, or present participation in activity. So that means they would show up. So a person would show up in the case you mentioned. If they still contribute financially, they would show up in attendance or contributions, and they would show up in attendance, but they wouldn't show up when you're on the contributions one. So you may kind of need to cross-reference these reports if you're kind of looking at situations like that, where maybe somebody attends your church but doesn't contribute, so you kind of consider them, or maybe it's the opposite, where they contribute to your church but they no longer attend. That may be something you want to consider as well. So we give a variety of options on this report. Okay. Go ahead and open it back up here. So feel free to ask questions. I'm just going to go ahead and proceed to the kind of our final slide here, where I thank everybody for attending this webinar today. I really hope everybody learned something here. I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. If you do have further questions, the best way to get a hold of our team is to call the support line number 1-800-346-6120. You could also email us at support@cts.cph.org. We are definitely experiencing a higher call volume just because it is year-end time, and that's definitely where we get the most calls. But please stick with us, be patient. We will absolutely get your questions answered to help you guys out, make sure you guys can get things wrapped up for the year for 2019 in Shepherd staff. Okay. All right. So thank you all for showing up today. I'll leave the floor open for questions for just a little bit longer, but otherwise, at this point, you guys have a nice day. So it looks like any other questions are coming in, so I'm going to go ahead and yes, the session, this webinar session was recorded, so you will be able to you'll be able to check that out in the software. I think we're also emailing this out. I don't know that for sure, but I believe that is going to happen as well. All right. Well, if there's no other questions today, I'm going to go ahead and close out. You guys have a wonderful day.